privilege of sharing my story with you and sharing a little bit about how nature has inspired my work. My name is Dr. Ela Manga. I am an integrative medical practitioner. What does that mean? Basically, my work is about supporting holistic wellness. So in my reflections on my journey and my reflections on my relationship with nature, I was carried back to memories of my childhood and my relationship with my grandfather. I remember as a little girl of 4 or 5, walking with my grandfather in our beautiful gardens where he planted trees, fruit trees, from seeds that he brought over from India when he came across to South Africa in 1926 with his grandfather. I have very special memories of that time, walking with him in the gardens, and I have a particular memory of him giving me a rose petal and saying, "Here, you can eat this." I think that there was something about that relationship with my grandfather and with nature that was so deeply etched in my soul that really inspired my deep curiosity of everything that grew and flourished. And perhaps that's what guided me to study medicine. And it was at medical school that my fascination with the perfect design of the human body was even more deeply entrenched. In studying anatomy and physiology, I was just in awe of this miracle that is the human form. I was in awe when I studied embryology, thinking about how a ball of cells could become a whole human being, that there was an intelligent pulse of life that is part of every one of us, that is part of all of nature, that connects us to all that is nature. And often we take this intelligent pulse of life for granted because this body's intelligence is quite forgiving. And even though we neglect the basic needs of our physical body, it still gets us to do incredible work, to perform amazing feats. But imagine if we could tune into it and harness it. We could really optimize not just our physical beings, but us as conscious spiritual beings. So when we're in nature and in an environment like this, it's not difficult to be in the present moment. And we can't not appreciate the incredible beauty that surrounds us. But we don't realize the relationship that nature has on our physiology, on our psyche, on our brains. There's been a fascinating study done recently to show that people who spent one day in a forest environment, and we know that Joburg is a forest environment, show a 40% increase in the natural killer cells in the body. Now, natural killer cells are the cells that fight off or mop up cancerous cells, for example. There's a 40% increase, boost in our immune system when we are in a natural environment for one day. The study has also shown that if we are in this environment for 2 days, this effect is magnified and lasts for a month. There's also been a very interesting study to show that the effect of bird song has a profound impact on our physiology and on our brain waves. So each bird song, each specific frequency of different bird song has a different effect on our brain waves, has a specific effect on a different part of the body or physiological system or endocrine system. So without knowing it, the sound of birdsong is healing us. This is something that we often take for granted. We take for granted our relationship with the trees, that our lungs are essentially inverted trees. Think about it. When we breathe in, we are breathing in oxygen, breathing out carbon dioxide. The trees are breathing in carbon dioxide and breathing out oxygen. There's a beautiful symbiotic relationship happening without us even realizing it. Now, what you will see behind you is an image of a breathing lotus leaf. This is proof and evidence that leaves, trees are producing oxygen. That is a breathing lotus leaf. Just for a moment, connect with your own breathing as you turn your awareness to this image. Just feel that, appreciate that, and think about this relationship that we so take for granted. One of the principles of integrative medicine is to live in accordance with the natural laws of nature. One of those laws is the law of rhythms. Now, we see rhythms playing out in all of nature. We see it every single day with the rise of the sun and the setting of the sun, in the lunar cycle, in the cycle of the seasons. But we also have physiological rhythms, the circadian rhythm, the rhythm of the breath, the rhythm of the heartbeat. But an important rhythm that has a profound impact on our well-being is the rhythm of the stress or the high energy response and the relaxation, the rest and digest mode. So there's a constant, or there should be, a constant rhythm of this high energy mode that gives us energy, and the relaxation mode that we experienced when we did yoga just now, when we can calm down, and this gives the body an opportunity to replenish its energy stores. Now, this rhythm works perfectly when we are in a natural environment. But living in a place like Joburg or any urban environment, everything in our environment pushes us towards the high energy stress response. So the stress hormones of adrenaline and cortisol are being pumped into our system constantly. Every time we look at our cell phone, every time we switch on the news, every time we get in our car, everything is perceived as a high demand situation where the body kicks into survival mode. And as a result, our entire beings are locked into a state of adrenalized energy. We have become addicts of our own stress hormones, right? And so, in order for us to really optimize our physiology and to optimize our perfect human design, our challenge now is to integrate these recovery loops into our lives so that we are aligning back to our natural rhythm. So whereas relaxation doesn't come naturally anymore, we have to make a conscious effort to connect. We have to make connection with ourselves a habit. Because the epidemic of stress, burnout, depression that we're seeing in our society at the moment is as a result of disconnection, I believe. And so our survival now not only requires that we live according to this primal survival mode, but that we transcend it by connecting with our highest human capacity for love and connection and compassion and kindness. So I think that we have to be really practical about how to integrate these recovery loops into our lives. And so I have a little formula that could perhaps help you. Daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly. Let's think about what we could do daily. Creating bookends at either end of the day, starting your morning mindfully in some way by journaling, turning towards your breath, maybe some yoga, some meditation, or just simply sitting in your garden and being present. How do you end your day mindfully? How do you create these bookends, these recovery loops that you're starting your day connected and you're ending your day connected? And then throughout your day, you're activating mini recovery loops in between meetings, in between phone calls. So we really need to be consciously inserting recovery loops into our everyday life. Even a simple sigh of relief or a yawn will activate the body's rest and digest mode. It doesn't have to be complicated. On a weekly basis, think about disconnecting from technology for half a day, 3 hours, 4 hours, where you can just sit in your garden or go on a picnic, sit on the grass, something that gets you to connect with yourself, with nature, with a loved one, with your pet. I see interesting smiles thinking about that. Okay. Something that works for you. On a monthly basis, think about taking yourself out of town, going on a hike, perhaps, a long walk. Okay. Just going back to the studies that I spoke about earlier in my talk, this has a profound, real physiological effect that will prevent you from burning out at the end of the year, comes December, right? And then on a quarterly basis, how can you deepen this recovery loop? Maybe a long weekend, if that's possible. So we really need to be conscious about how we can start to reintroduce recovery and connection back to our lives. Now, the simplest way to do that, for me, is to turn to something that we are already doing all the time, that we take for granted, and that is the breath. We're breathing all the time. We don't have to think about it. But simply by turning our attention to it, we can start to really harness the energy and the power of the breath. By becoming aware of the breath, we become more self-aware. By regulating the breath, we are able to energize ourselves. We are able to calm down. We are able to hack the system and change our physiology just simply by changing the way that we breathe. And this becomes a really practical and effective tool to integrate into our everyday lives. But to wrap up my talk to you today, I'd like to just read you a piece from my book, Breathe, that speaks to this idea of this intelligent pulse of life that is part of us and part of all that is. Every second of every day, and with every single breath that we take, 400 billion bits of information are being processed. Every one of our 100 trillion cells is like its own planet, communicating with all other cell planets in the galaxy, microcosm of the macrocosm. What is the intelligence that tells the heart to send white cells racing off to the site of an infection? Is it the same intelligence that makes us yawn when we're tired, gets the pineal gland to secrete the sleep hormone in response to darkness? Is it the same intelligence that stimulates milk from a mother's breast at the sound of her baby crying? Is it the same intelligence that keeps the heart beating, the lungs pumping, the liver detoxifying, and the stomach digesting? Could it be the same intelligence that changes the chemical composition of happy tears and sad tears? I think it is. And so I call her IPOL, the intelligent pulse of life, which is the pulse of life within us, that is the pulse of life around us. IPOL is authentic energy. She expresses herself in the most astonishing ways in the miraculous mind-body machine that is us. Thank you, everybody.